This week's Extra Life on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by EXA. EXA brings the latest technology to gamers, offering the most immersive products for the ultimate gaming experience. They've compiled the best elements of cutting-edge ENC tech, the latest in Bluetooth 5.0 and 7.1 surround, plus extra features into their headsets so everyone can enjoy a sensational gaming experience. And they've got headsets for Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and PC. Plus, they won't break the bank. Learn more about the headsets that are available and any current promotions by going to f5live.tv/exa. While EXA might offer headsets for the Switch, what they don't offer is headsets for the Wii U, which is the predecessor to the Nintendo Switch. And that is for a couple of reasons. One, the Wii U was not really intended for that kind of gaming, and two, it's pretty old at this point. So much so that kind of the final nail has been put into the coffin of the console that came out so long ago now, in that Nintendo is no longer offering repairs for the console. So, any repairs that need be done will not be official starting now, which means that you'll have to find a local shop like ours that is able to do unofficial repairs through either using dead consoles, parts out of them, or aftermarket parts and pieces. Why is that important? Because the Wii U, despite its controversy and its very divisive nature in the industry, it did have a cult following. Many people still asking about them today, and this does end that generation from Nintendo officially. It's the console that nearly ended the company. They took a big risk on a feature that they really thought was going to be big and never turned out to be big. But the eShop is already gone. All of the online capabilities have been gone for a while, and no longer repairing them really does say that generation is done. Now, here's the thing. This timing is not accidental. We are expecting to hear sometime over the next probably 6 to 8 months official details on the Switch's successor. So the Switch's predecessor finally ending hardware support is not a surprise. Nintendo has all but officially confirmed that the Switch 2 is slated for a 2025 release. And so for its predecessor to be done is not all that big of a surprise. It does tend to be the way Nintendo works, and oftentimes how the other companies work as well, when they're ready for the new one. The previous one, 2 generations back, fully EOLs, with the PlayStation 2 being the weird exception because of some weird thing that was happening in Brazil, that the PlayStation 3 wasn't allowed in Brazil for a long time. But everything okay over there, Avram?
Yeah, I don't know if there's some noise behind me. Sorry. I'm also near
Okay.
the window. I'm also near the window.
Just
But
just want to make sure.
but but interesting that when you talk about Brazil, right? One of the really cool things, I think I showed you this the other day, a few months ago, when I was at the Retro Computer Show a few months ago, was all of the Brazilian and
Yeah.
I think Argentinian knockoff Commodore and
Yeah.
Apple computers, because in the 80s there was some kind of law against them, and so they
It
had to have knockoff ones.
So it continued. So that is the same thing that prevented the PlayStation 3 from ever releasing in Brazil until almost the PS4 came out. So the PS2 was the gaming console in Brazil because it, for whatever reason, I don't remember all the details because it was so long ago. It was like the beginning of this show. It it existed in Brazil forever because for some reason it wasn't affected by whatever things, whatever laws continued on. So the PS3 wasn't allowed in, but the PS2 was. So Sony had to continue making the PS2s up until the PS4 came out, which was wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, normally, you know, support ends. Support ends, not just manufacturing, but support ends before the next one comes out. So that is a good sign that we are likely to start hearing more details or any official details about the Switch 2 in the near term. We've seen some renderings that look like they could be official. They have, if they're real, they're pretty streamlined. The device looks pretty slick if they're real. But, it ends a very rough chapter in Nintendo's very long history. The company was founded, if I remember correctly, in the late 1800s. They made cards and card games for most of their existence. And, they have almost never run profit losses except when they were being affected by this. So it's a really interesting time. Some cool stuff came out of that era. Mario Kart 8, right? Which is still the standard, came out for the Wii U first. And then the 3DS and the Switch. Somehow we have not progressed past it, but that's fine. But they struggled to ever get third-party developer support, even though developers thought that the tablet was an interesting game aspect. The thing that it always meant was that there was an imbalance in play because you can only have one of them. So there was an imbalance in play between player one and the other three. If the tablet was involved.
Right.
It made remote media stuff interesting, though that none of that works anymore because, again, online support has been gone for a while. It was an interesting concept. We have something similar today in the PlayStation Portal, which is essentially just a modernized version of that concept, which is fascinating that here we are a decade later and PlayStation has built the Wii U. But yeah, dark time for Nintendo, though there are some really, really big fans even today. So as we always say at the end of a support era, no matter what it is, if you like it, keep it in good working order because it's going to be a whole lot harder to get any kind of official support starting now. But the good news is that when official support ends, aftermarket support starts heavily. So there will be aftermarket chips and things like that will start coming out. So your local shops will probably be able to help you maintain those devices.
It's a weird thing. Like, this was not a very popular console, but yet my son, who never had one, seems to think that it was like a really breaking device. And when we went to the retro gaming festival, the thing he wanted to see most was a Wii U.
They're an oddity, right? In the grand scheme of things, the 3DS might still be the top selling device gaming console ever, right? I think it's the 3DS. And then at the same time, you have the Wii U, which only sold 13.5 million units worldwide. I mean, right. that is abysmal. right? The device was out for quite a
Right.
while, 13.5 million units. I think the Xbox One and PS4 sold that in their first 6 months, at least. It just not great. So it makes it an oddity, and it was an oddity that it had the screen and the motion controls and all this, things that were new. And in fairness, if it wasn't for the weird flop that was the Wii U, we wouldn't have the Switch. Because the Switch is just the natural evolution of looking at it and going, oh, well, that was stupid. What about this? And we have the Switch, which has been a huge success for Nintendo, right? So it was this weird middle ground between the Wii, which was popular and groundbreaking, and the Switch, which was popular and groundbreaking, which, has inspired Valve and Asus to come out with these Windows and Linux based clones, essentially, right? Everybody's chasing the Switch when it comes to portable gaming. But it just was this weird middle child that didn't conform to either, and nobody wanted. But without it, we wouldn't have the Switch, and we wouldn't have the Steam Deck, and we wouldn't have the Ally, and all of these cool devices that are out now. We wouldn't have it if the Wii U hadn't come out and been weird and kind of hated. Uh, so
Yeah,
yeah,
so it is a groundbreaker.
yeah, he's not wrong. It was groundbreaking, but it was groundbreaking not exactly for the reasons that Nintendo had hoped that it would be.
Yeah.
But it was inspirational to a whole new era of portable gaming. So that is cool, and we appreciate it for sure. But it's definitely now officially into the history books as far as Nintendo's concerned. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course, hit the notification bell because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.